All right, my initial self-commentary video before we get started. I do not claim to be a great racer, great driver, or anything. And I know I need some work on trail braking, but I'm learning this, and that's just where I am. Also, I did not adjust the ABS or traction control on this, and that can change a decent amount of your ability to get up and go and or brake. But I'm leaving that up to you to research that and find out that on your own. I'm more dealing with the suspension modifications here than anything else. Next point is I'm not aggressively trying for the fastest lap every time I go out. I'm more trying for consistency, and I am just trying to get a ballpark figure on where the handling is on the car. And so there are times, certain corners, like, okay, I'm going to push this a little bit, and other times I'll back off because I know how the car is going to handle there, and I'm just going through it. In light of that, I tried to stay on the driving line, not so much that I needed it for the track, but just for consistency, so the car was experiencing the same thing. But my interpretation of the driving line was a little bit different than the game's interpretation of the driving line, and I found myself getting a lot of warnings, which resulted in no posted lap times in the HUD. Well, I think I'd rather, in a setup scenario, keep driving over the curbs and do something to shake and rattle the suspension up as well as get fast times. So I have no problem with that. I know during a race I would clean my racing up, hopefully, but I know I've now got the suspension to back me up in case I'm like neck and neck with a guy and I'm getting ready to go in the chicane and uh, I need to drop out. Well, dropping out might put me over the curb. I don't want that curb to send me off. So now I don't know that I've adjusted the car to at least handle those kinds of things. Um, anyway, I don't consider this a problem when setting up a tune. It's it's all about car handling, and that's what we're trying to figure out. And worst case scenario, when the car swiftly impacts a curb or some other thing that impacts the tire and the suspension, is it still going to handle well? How's it doing through the more sweeping turns, and etc. A quick comment on brake balance. Um, Brake balance is whatever's going to help you slow down and get into that turn. And everybody has a preference with that. Whatever came up on this in the beginning is just what I'm leaving for now. I might adjust it later. Sometimes I adjust it in the middle of the race, and as I find I'm getting into it and I've warmed up a little bit, and I just need a little more to the rear, a little more to the front. Um, the idea is that if you move your brakes more to the rear grab and allows the front end to turn. So it's kind of like someone grabbing you by the scruff of the neck and pulling you while you're running, and just gives you a little bit more turn in. At least everybody that I've talked to has said that that's what it does. And I think in Project Motor Racing, it does a fair job of letting you feel that. I've played other games where it seems like the brake balance doesn't mean a whole lot to me. And so I'm just going to leave that to your preference and read up on that. You can read up on that somewhere else. All right. Another note concerning your car not feeling good through the entirety of the track. Again, some turns it feels really good, some turns you're struggling. It's better for your car to have too much oversteer than too much understeer. Too much oversteer, at least your car is turning in and you can adjust your driving to keep the car on the track. If you have too much understeer, the car is going to just want to continually go off the track, and you're going to be often fighting just to keep the car on, and it is going to slow you down. So having a little bit of oversteer is better than having too much understeer. A lot of pro drivers just choose a preset and then they raise or lower the rear of the car depending upon whether they want understeer or oversteer. And so that's, again, it's just an easier way to do it. Choose a preset. If the car has too much oversteer, it's turning in too quickly, then lower the rear end a little bit. And if the car has too much understeer, like it's plowing, it's going off, then raise the rear of the car and it'll help the car turn in. That's a simple way of getting started with any tune. What we're gonna do. Someone had mentioned to me when showing these videos is I tend to talk a lot more in the terms of sloppy and stiff suspension, but and I know I've mentioned it a few times, but I just want to reiterate it again. There's also the issue of responsiveness. So yeah, the car's leaning, but if it's leaning and gripping and not sliding, that's not bad. So that may feel sloppy, but how responsive is it? Is it staying on the track? Is it sliding out? Is it unresponsive? You know, like sometimes I mentioned with the looser suspension, I'm going through this chicanes and it just doesn't feel like the car is counteracting the chicanes as well as it could. So those are some other ways and terminology you need to get in your head when you're doing this. Sloppy, stiff, sure, but responsive, unresponsive, maybe overly responsive might be a better way of looking at it for you. So think of the sloppy. You know, I said that can make the turn in great. That's great for turn in, but if it doesn't help me get through a chicane, then sloppy's no good. So I have to stiffen it up so that the car becomes more responsive. I may be sacrificing a little bit of grip on the beginning of the first turn into a chicane, but at least I know I can get out of it quicker. And so don't forget that terminology concerning responsiveness or unresponsiveness or too responsive.
Tuning your car from scratch is good because it helps you understand your car, your driving on the track that you're in, and can help you adjust the same car for different tracks. It will help you adjust other cars, but you can't start off with the same settings. So that'll be a topic for another day. But the importance of this is so that you will know your car. If you're used to driving games with a BOP setup like Gran Turismo, where you enter into a daily and the car is just set up for you. You choose tires and a fuel strategy or tire strategy and something like that, and you just drive. That's good. But when you get into games like Project Motor Racing or ACC, you're going to want and need to tune your car to get the maximum amount of grip and performance out of it. That being said, again, you can choose a preset and start from there, but you won't understand how to fine tune your car if you don't know how it works to begin with. So why build a tune-up from scratch? And again, it's part of knowing what your car and you are capable of on a specific track. And there will be compromises. For example, if you adjust your car to get through turns 1 through 3 really well, it might not be the best at getting through turns 5 through 7. And the conversely is same true. You might tune your car to get through turns 5 through 7, but turns 1 through 3 are going to be difficult. And that is going to be true of any race car in real life. You have to find which is going to be the best setup for you to produce the fastest and most consistent track lap time. Another topic is how much time is this going to take? I can just do one of the presets and I can raise and lower the rear end for better understeer and oversteer and drive. Yes, you can do that absolutely, and you'll have a good time. But if you want to learn the ins and outs of suspension, this is going to take time, and it's definitely going to take a lot of laps. Now, once you get your car adjusted to one track setup, now that you know how that car handles, you'll have an easier time setting that car up for other tracks at later dates. Some people have said, I know that there are certain games that you can just max out the negative camber and the car handles great. Maybe you can do that on Project Motor Racing. Maybe you can't. I don't know. I haven't tried it. And that's just not the way I go about trying to set up my cars. So in developing your car from scratch, we're going to start off driving 3 different car setups. And one is going to be a very sloppy setup. The other one's going to be a very firm setup. And the other one's going to be a medium setup. And for each of these setups, you're going to keep the tire pressure at its maximum because we don't want any of that loose tire feel coming through in the suspension. We're trying to dial that in. But we will dial in tire pressure and camber later. All right. The first setting is going to be a sloppy, tall car with minimal camber, maximum PSI setting. And overly loose suspension like this will produce excessive body roll, unpredictable weight transfer, sometimes unresponsiveness in turns is just going to feel like it's just not quite gripping the way that it should. It'll likely dive the car down under braking, not just the nose, but the whole car can hunker down, although the nose will get the most of it likely. And you're going to struggle to get in and out of turns. All right, so let's pick a car and a track. We're going to go to single player, choose race weekend, and I picked the GT4 Porsche at Zolder. I'm unfamiliar with this car on this track, actually pretty much both, and I thought it would be a good place for me to start. And I set the opponents to 0. This way I don't have to be concerned about any of the bots, AI, getting in my way or vice versa. The session itself, I set this for 265 minutes, which is pretty long. And even if it's not enough time, you can save your settings, come back to this at a later day, and start from where you left off. But at least you can feel like your time's going to be uninterrupted, and that'll work. So let's go down to the bottom and choose race. Then I'm going up to vehicle setup. I'm going to choose tires and chassis. I start off with a medium compound because I tend to race more with that than any other. But I think you're better off with a longer lasting tire than, say, a soft tire, which might only give you about 7 to 10 laps before it starts to show more wear. I haven't tested any of that yet. But anyway, so the tire pressure I'm going to set to maximum on all 4 wheels. And the rear wing angle I'm going to set to 0. And we will adjust those later. But the reason I want the tire pressure hard is I don't want to mix up what I'm feeling with the car when it's actually the tires moving underneath the rim. So for example, if your car is making a left-hand turn, the tire underneath might still be gripping the tarmac, and it's going to move a little bit outside the rim and stay to the right. You watch any race video with the camera on the front tire, and you will literally see the tire looks like it's going to want to come off the rim, but it's just gripping and the rim's pushing through it or pulling through it. Usually it's pushing through. And but anyway, I just didn't. You don't want that kind of feel yet. We will deal with that later. So once we get this done, we'll save this. We'll back out of this setting, and we go on to suspension. And we're going to set all of these to their lowest settings. We're going to make this as sloppy as we can. This is going to be our sloppy Zolder setting. So the spring rate's at its lowest, slow bump, rebound, fast rebound, all set to their lowest setting. Now the bump stop length, I'm also setting to its lowest setting, and here's why. So if your shocks allow your springs to travel from here to here, the bump stop stands it up and only allow it to travel so far. So if your bump stop is shorter, it's going to travel this far. If it's taller, it's only going to travel this far. So we're reducing the bump stop to 0 so that the springs will travel pretty much the full length that the shock will allow it to, all the way up and down. And again, that will make your car a little more springy. The bump stop spring rate, again, at its lowest setting. The camber, we want to set it to our lowest negative setting. Right now it's set at 0.13, and it seems like my lowest negative setting on this left side is 0.07 to the negative. It's as low as I can go. That's where I want to start. Toe in and toe out, I want it to be in the 0.2 range. The front, I want a little bit of toe out, where the front tires are further outside than the front of the front tires are further to the outside than the rear of the front tires. So that means it's going to have a negative setting. So I'm going to get this down as close as I can to negative 0.2 as a starter. The caster offset for now, I'm just going to set it down to 0. And the ride height, I want it to be as tall as possible. So this car is going to sit up, maybe not like a 4-wheel drive, but it's going to be up there. And we're going to do similar things to the bottom, minimum, 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 minimum. Camber, making sure it's to the lowest negative setting. And the toe in, I'm going to make it as close to 0.2 in, which means it's going to have a positive value like this does, 0.21. And the ride height, I'm going to make it as high as possible. Next, I'll move to the anti-roll bar. And again, I want these squishy. So I'm going to just reduce them to their minimum setting. These happen to be 57 pounds. And this is roughly duplicated on the right-hand side, whatever I do on the left. And we are good to drive this car. So here we go. I'm going to back out and go to drive and hit go and get this car started. So as a reminder, the car is going to feel squishy. Low turns, it's probably going to want to turn in very sharply. And through the turn, let's see how we do here. Yeah, I mean, I'm barely touching the brake, and that car's just moving in. But I notice it's having a hard time staying in the turn, and that's common for a sloppy suspension. It's just like it's just getting a little too much oversteer. I know the tires are cold, but because these settings are so severe, we're going to feel it anyway. And a reminder, that's part of this lesson, is to get you used to how this car feels. Like, for example, going over those curbs felt pretty easy with the loose suspension. We will deal with that later. Whoops, I better keep my eyes on the road. All right. Now this is a GT4 car. It is a Porsche. So I notice when I'm braking, excuse me, hacking up on live stream or live recorded TV, whatever this is. Anyway, I'm not noticing the car hunkering down a whole lot when I brake. If this was a street car, say like we were driving Gran Turismo and we were trying to tune a street car and get it race ready, it would likely hunker down a lot more, and the front end would dip a lot more. Again, what I am noticing is that the car tends to oversteer initially when I brake, and then after that it doesn't steer well at all. It just seems to want to go off the track. I feel like I'm having to fight it a lot just to keep it on. So let's get a few laps in here, and we'll get a loose lap time. I'm not looking to set any records or do my fastest. Just get a comfortable, boy, I'm still having to turn that in. It feels like it's plowing. We just want to get a comfortable lap time in here. So here we go. Yep. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to go back to the pit and go back to vehicle setup. Now it says here I did a 157, but even with all my snafus, I was roughly a 141. I saw when I crossed the line. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to just load any page in the setup and then click the R3 button, and I'm going to save the setup. Now we're going to make it super stiff, but still keep the high suspension. So the tire compounds and everything are going to stay the same. I'm going to take the spring rate and I'm going to max it out. The bump rate, I'm going to max it out. Everything's going to get maxed out because I want this to be as stiff as possible now. And the bump stop length, I'm going to keep at 0 because I still want the potential for it to travel up and down. And keep the camber the same. Whoops, the camber, I need to get back on the negative setting. And the toe in, caster offs, I don't care. Ride height adjustment, again, keeping it at its tallest. So then we do the same for the rear. We're going to max it out, max it out. And our anti-roll bars, we're going to max those out as well. So this car is going to be excessively stiff. And that's okay. We want to learn how it handles. And again, you drive, you're going to feel things different than I do. You get a different car, you're going to feel different things than I have here. But it's all part of you getting used to that car. And then once you get this tune set up, you can start adjusting it for each additional track and not have to necessarily go too excessive in your adjustments, or if you do, you'll know what to do and why you're doing it. All right, so we have this completely stiffened setup, and we're going to exit again, and we are going to drive. Here we go. All right, so last time so I'm not feeling the pull in like I did before when I step on the brakes, which is good. And again, these tires are cold, so we know we're not at our full grip. I'm not very concerned about that yet. As I stated again, it's probably for the third or fourth time now, it's about getting used to the car. Previous was, how does it feel to me when it's super sloppy? Now, how's it going to feel when it's super, super stiff? I can tell you this, going over those curves was a lot more rough with it stiff than sloppy. Okay, the car felt like it was going to plow a little bit right there. I had to slow it down. I felt like I was going to go off the edge of the track, not just from a steering angle like it was when it was sloppy, but just literally like it was about ready to slide on me. When it was sloppy, it just felt like it just didn't want to go. There is sounds, I can kind of hear it in the game sound effects. It sounds like the tires are sliding a little bit. Oops. I do feel like I'm coming out of the turns better. It's still a fight, but it's better than when it was overly sloppy.
Looks like you're having fun out there.
It looks like I'm having fun out here. I think I am. Yeah, so definitely plowing a little bit on that turn. Whereas in the previous setup, the turn-in was great, and then the car just felt like it didn't want to turn anymore. Oh, infraction. Car feels slipperier. Little skittish. Yeah, still feels like it's about ready to slide off. And I realize we have no downforce either, but that's all right. Just want to get the suspension more dialed in first. So it's 0.2 of a second faster than the sloppy one. I would say if I had to choose between the two right now, I would take the more firm over the super sloppy. The car's still turning in, but it's coming out of the turns, I feel like, better than it did when the car was sloppy. Like going through those S's, again, the car felt way more firm and in control, less body roll. And you may wonder why I have the driving line. I don't know this track on this game very well. And plus it gives me kind of a consistent line to drive the car in all these settings. I mean, it may not be the optimal driving line for this car during the race, but I know if I'm trying to develop consistency for the sake of tuning. I know if I follow the line, I'm in the same groove. So there's a 140 flat. So we've already got that previous time beat by a second. And I'm not really trying. I'm just, other than trying to keep the car on the track, I can't say that I feel like I'm pushing this at all. But I am wanting to get a feel for the super stiff suspension. Definitely slidier. Slidier, a word? Can I use slidier? Make up a word? I don't know. Definitely slidier.
Sometimes we're finding more aero is better than less if it's skating around on you. There's no harm in going up on the wing.
We know. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, we're going to return to the pit, go to vehicle setup, and choose any one of the components here so you can load up the save setup menu on the bottom of the screen, way down the bottom down there. And so we're going to choose save setup again, and we're going to change the name of this. So I'm going to make this stiff high. And that was a 140.3. So that now I have these saves I can fall back on in case I mess something up and I don't remember the changes that I made. I know that I can go back and do this again. So the next one, here we go. Now we're going to do medium settings. So we're still going to keep the tire pressure at its highest. The rear wing is going to be at its lowest. And we're going to go back to suspension. And we're going to go halfway between all these marks. So from 914 to its maximum, oops, where'd it go? Okay, so 914 down to the minimum. Sorry about that. We're good. And then now I'm going to do the same with the anti-roll bars. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. So there's everything roughly medium, maybe a little more on the stiff side because I seem to like it a little more on the stiff side than normal. And this is going to be our medium setting once we drive it and save it. Let's go see how she rolls.
Clear of the pits.
Clear of the pits. Turn-in feels a little better on the initial turn-in, being not quite so stiff. turn in here. Whoops. I think it felt good. I'd rather have a little excessive than a little not. But I also don't feel like I'm going way off the track like I did with the sloppy setting. So medium could be a good posture here. Let's see if the track times will reflect the difference. Cold tires. Going over the curb still felt pretty good. Whoops, did not brake in time for that. Cold tires and all. Still a little sloppier there than I think I would like it. All right, let's return to the pit. And that was a 139.7, again, without superiorly trying. Made a couple snafus, and it was still faster than the super stiff or the super sloppy. So that makes that a better starting point from here on out. So we go back to vehicle setup and choose one of the options that allows me to get it to the save setting. So I'll choose save setup. Whoops. If it'll let me. There we go. And I'm going to say this is a medium. And I did a 139.7, I think. Pretty easily. If not, it's showing the top of the 3. Now, here's what you probably need to do. If this is still new to you, then I would run these again, but do, say, like a quarter setting. So go between the sloppy and the medium setting, run it, save it. Then do a 3/4 setting, go between the medium and the high setting, somewhere between there, run it, save it, and see which one gets you closer again to consistent, fast lap time. So now we have at least 3 settings, and you have your super sloppy setting, your super stiff setting, and the medium setting. And we want to keep these now as a reference, because I don't know about you, but I've had times where I get into a tune and I save it and I screw something up and I have nothing to fall back on, and basically I have to start over. So I always try to keep a base setting now, or at least keep sequential save settings, so I know how to can fall back on one in case my current one just gets so out of adjustment or unnecessary that I can't drive it well. So what you want to start with is a setting that is fast, but not necessarily the one that's easiest to drive. Again, we discussed it earlier on. That it might drive really well through some turns and be a little bit work in the others. So fast is probably good as long as it's consistent. So fast and consistent should be the profile that you start with: sloppy, stiff, or medium. And because again, consistency is going to be way better than speed. Speed will come later. So whichever one of those 3 or more, if you have more, that you have, choose that one and then duplicate it. And I will duplicate it with a similar name, and I'll just put like a T1 at the end for test number 1. but I know that when I look at the frame, it's Zolder medium. I know that that's where it came from. And so T1 will be the acronym I'll put on the end of these and get started. A note about consistency, because people will look at their fast lap and say, well, that's the one that was the fastest. But consistency is typically better than speed, because if you can do 3 fast laps in a 10-lap race and 7 laps inconsistent, it's probably not going to go well for you. If you can do 10 consistent laps in a race, it's probably going to go a lot better for you. And so consistency is key. So now we move on to, I'm just going to use the base 3 setups. Which one was the best? If it's medium, leave the settings as they are. And if it was the softer suspension, the super sloppy one, then take all those suspension settings that we had adjusted through these trials and set them between the soft and the medium setting. So we know that ultra soft and ultra stiff are just way too much. And at least having them all at those settings is way too much. So if you chose the stiff setting, then move all those settings down between the medium and the stiff setting, and that will be our new starting point. So these will be our starting points for the more detailed tune that we're going to step into. So is this a lot of work? Yes, it is. But it will pay off. And if nothing more, you're going to get knowledge about your car and how it handles, as opposed to just dropping something in and hoping that it works. Because when you know how to tune something out of it or tune something into it, more power to you as far as the racing is concerned. All right, let's move on to the more detailed step.